Now, I imagine there's some of you that are like me, hopefully not too much like me, but a little bit like me, in that you drive through Orlando going to some of the same places over and over again every day, right? You drive to work and back. You drive to take your kids to school and back. You drive to the same theme park and back. You drive to the same baseball field and back. You go from one place to the next and back, and you know exactly how to get there. And with it being Orlando, you probably know 5, 6, 7 ways to get to and from the same place. And you have to. But if you are a wise person in Orlando, what you're going to do is you're not just going to know how to get there. You're also going to know that every week is a different experience in this city. Because if there's certain conventions in town, or it's somebody up north, their spring break or whatever it may be, there's going to be different traffic patterns. You also don't know that, hey, all the time we're always under construction, but what's the construction going to be today? Which I-4 Sand Lake exit is going to be messed up today? You don't know how this is going to go. And so even though you know where you're going and you know how to get there, what you tend to do, if you are wise, even if you know that you're going there, you put in your GPS and say, hey, this is where I'm going. This is the address. And then as you are going, what you'll see on the map is sometimes you'll see that a certain way is red, right? And red means that's a no-go. I want to avoid that at all cost. And there's certain places in the city it's just always red. If you ever have to drive through Davenport, God bless your soul, I'm sorry. It's always bad, right? Champions Gate area, it's terrible. Like, it's just going to be bad. But then sometimes it's yellow. For some of you, that scares you. For me, it's a challenge. Okay, if it's yellow, that means it might be bad, but if I weave in and out at the right places, if I drive fast enough at this spot, if I cut somebody off at this spot and work my way in, I'm sorry, I spent too much time in Philly. I'm an aggressive, angry driver. It just happens. And so I will take the yellow as a challenge, even though it says you probably should not go this way. There's a better way of doing this, and it will get you there at this time. I go, nah, watch this. I'm going to make it. That's just the way that I go through things, even though I know there's a better way, even though Siri tells me there's a better way, a faster way. In my mind, I'm better than Siri. I have more information and knowledge than Siri. It's there. Anybody else have that problem? Yeah, a few of you. Anybody else married to that problem? Yeah, sorry. That's the way it goes. That's the issue. See, at some point you realize, like, you know how to get there. The issue is not the directions. The issue is you don't actually want to follow them. You know there's a better way. You just choose not to want to go that way. I don't like driving on that road. I don't like the possibilities of what could happen if I drive down that road. And so you choose what you believe is the better way. You want to get there. You just want to get there your way. And I think if we're honest, that's not just how we drive. That's how we follow Jesus. See, last week we asked the question, the same question that Jesus asked. Hey, what do you want? What is it that you truly want? And over the past few weeks, as we've been talking about what is it like to behold Jesus, what does it look like, we've asked some certain questions that I think Jesus has begun to reveal himself of going, wait a minute, what is it that we want? But we started with, well, some people walk away with Jesus, but it's not because they don't recognize him. And see, for us, the challenge is, do we recognize Jesus for who he is? And he asked that question, who do you say I am? And some of us begin to realize, no, he is God. He is God in the flesh, come to live and die and then raise again. We recognize that. But some people, they even recognize, I recognize who Jesus is, but I still walk away. And then we followed Jesus up the mountain where he would be transfigured. And some of the disciples, a couple of the disciples, would see him transfigured and recognize, wait a minute, this is truly God. And then the Father would say, this is my Son, listen to him. And so it's not just enough for us to know who he is, then we have to truly listen to him. And some people walk away saying, I know who he is. I just don't want to listen to him. But still others say, I'll listen. But the problem is, it's not just that I didn't hear. The problem really is they want something else more. We want something else more. But this week, I believe we're going to pull a lot of that into focus and not just look at who he is, not just ask the question, am I listening to him? Not just answer the question, what is it that I want from him? But then ask this question that I think many of us struggle with and the world struggles with. The question of, will I trust him enough to surrender? So if you have your Bibles this morning, we're going to look at Mark chapter 10. And so if you have your Bible, you can open up Mark chapter 10. If you hit Acts and Romans, you're too far. If you're still in the Psalms, keep going. You can flip there. If not, we'll put the verses up on the screen, or you can scan the QR code in front of you, and that'll take you to the notes for today, and you can add your own notes and follow along there. But we're going to start reading in Mark chapter 10, verse 32. Mark chapter 10, verse 32. And it says, they were on their way up to Jerusalem. And when it talks about up to Jerusalem, they're not talking about going north. They're talking about in elevation. So they're climbing up to this city on a hill. This place that was the center of life for all of the Jews for many, many, many years. The place that would have the temple that Haggai would once prophesy and say, you see this place now, and you think in its former glory, man, it's never going to be the same. But he prophesied this place will see even more glory than before. And he was prophesying that Jesus would once walk and be in that place, in that temple. And so they're on their way up to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way. And the disciples were astonished, while those who followed were afraid. And he took the 12 aside and told them what was going to happen to him. And so right here, we see they're on the road. Jesus is out in front. He's focused. He's intentional. He's moving forward towards something that the disciples don't fully understand. And it says they were amazed, and those who followed were afraid. Why are they amazed? Well, I think they're amazed knowing Jesus has been performing miracle after miracle. He's been prophesying all kinds of things that would happen. He's been performing miracles. He's been teaching them all kinds of things that they didn't quite understand. And so they're walking and they're truly amazed. And yet they're also afraid because he's been telling them some things that they don't quite understand. And really, quite frankly, they just don't like. And so they're walking and they're amazed and they're afraid all at the same time. And it's because Jesus has already told them he's going to suffer. Jesus has already told them that he will be rejected. Jesus has already told them that he will be killed, and still he keeps walking. Before Jesus ever calls them to surrender, he models it. In verse 33, he says, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death, and they will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him and spit on him, flog him, and kill him. 3 days later, he will rise. He models this surrender. The Son of Man's going to be delivered. He's going to be mocked. He's going to be beaten. But here's something that's incredible. This is not forced. This is chosen. Jesus is not dragged to the cross. I don't know if you've ever thought of that, but Jesus was not dragged to the cross. Nobody made him go. They didn't pull him along. Jesus is out in front, knowing full well that he is about to walk into death, and he chooses to go. Why does he choose to go? Because of his great love for you and me. And so as we work towards Good Friday, the reason that it is good is because the Son of Man, Jesus, fully God, was about to lay down his life for us while we were yet sinners, out of love. So he's walking towards his death. He's not just telling them the way, he's modeling and showing them the way. Verse 35, this is when it gets crazy. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. That's bold. Some of you have kids, and your kids are all different, right? My oldest son, he is just sweet and nice and kind. And even if we ask him, hey man, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for your birthday? What do you want? He won't tell us. He's like, I don't need anything. He's just so nice. And I've got that son, but then I've got my third son. And he is like, I will wear you down until you joyfully give me what I want because I deserve it and I need it. Some of you have kids like that. James and John are that. I don't know what gave them that boldness. I don't know what made them think they deserved it or they could get it, but they come to Jesus and they're like, hey, Jesus, I want you to give us what we're about to ask you. They don't even tell him what it is yet. Like, Jesus, give us the green light, then we'll let you know what the plan is. Go ahead, tell us. Jesus says, well, what do you want me to do for you? And they replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. Bold just got even more bold. Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left. And then Jesus says something. He says, can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with? We can. Yes, we can. See, they still think in their mind, they still think Jesus is coming to overthrow the Roman Empire, to take his place on a throne on earth, and they are going to lead with him. And so they're thinking everything just natural. They're thinking, oh, can I drink from the cup? Yeah, I can drink from your cup, Jesus. Remember when you turned the water into wine? Yeah, you got a good cup. I can drink from that, Jesus. I'm good with that. Can you do the baptism that I did? And they're thinking, yeah, we know. You got baptized by John the Baptist. We can do that. We can go under the water and come back out. We can do that. And Jesus is painting a picture of going, I'm about to drink a cup that you do not want to taste because it is going to be the wrath of God on all of the sins of humanity that I'm going to bear on the cross. That is the cup that I'm about to drink. And the baptism that I'm about to be baptized with isn't that I'm going to go underwater and come back out. The baptism that I'm about to have is that I'm going to die, be buried underground, and then resurrected on the third day. Can you drink from that? Can you be baptized like that? And they're going, yeah, we can, because they don't quite comprehend what he's saying, what he is really putting in front of them. So give us one at your right hand, one at your left. They still think one of them's going to be CEO, one of them's going to be CFO, and they're just going to help Jesus run the place, but that's not how it works. And besides, he says, hey, that's not for me to grant. Those places are for those whom have already been prepared by the Father. And so Jesus has been talking to them already about sacrifice. But they come at him and they're talking about status. See, they don't reject Jesus. They're following Jesus. They love Jesus. They want everything that Jesus has to offer in their own mind. They don't reject him. They just want to follow him on their terms. And I think we're the same way. We want resurrection without the cross. We want glory without surrender. It's much like there's an Old Testament narrative that I don't know if many of you have ever heard the name Naaman before. Naaman was this rich, powerful guy, had a lot of things going for him. Everything's great except for one problem. He had leprosy. And if you had leprosy back then, you're like, there's no cure for this. It's not going to work. And by the way, you can't be near anybody else because it's highly contagious and nobody wants to be around you and you're considered unclean. And so Naaman's got all of this stuff going for him, but he's got a major problem that his wealth can't fix. His power can't fix. None of it will work. And so Naaman hears that there's this prophet out there that could heal him. And so he calls and asks this prophet to heal him, and instead, the prophet kind of sends word back and just sends him a message and says, hey, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go wash yourself in the Jordan River 7 times. And Naaman's mad. Naaman is furious because he's going, I'm coming to you because I've tried everything and it didn't work. And I'm coming to you and you want me to go bathe in the Jordan River 7 times? And Naaman even says the silent part out loud. He even says, hey, I thought he would come out. I thought this prophet would come out and like wave his hand and do some sort of like crazy magical miracle trick and like make a performance out of it and be like incredible. I thought that was going to happen, and you just want me to go take a bath 7 times? And then he even says, he's like, aren't the rivers of Damascus better? Like, I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of people, they go to Israel and they want to be baptized in the Jordan River. And I think that's amazing. That's great. If I ever go, I'll probably do it. But I don't know if you've noticed this. When you see people that are baptized in the Jordan River, that river's nasty. It is dirty. It's not clean. Like, this is not Clearwater Beach. You look down and you can see the fish swimming around. No, this is, I don't know what is around me. It's gross. And Naaman's basically saying the same thing. Like, do you want me to go bathe in this river that is probably dirtier than I am? And there's better rivers out there. Like, why didn't you tell me to go to Damascus instead at least? I want healing. I just don't want it that way. And then finally, over time, Naaman humbles himself and does it God's way, and he's healed. And that's exactly what's happening with the disciples. Jesus is showing them the way. But the way is sacrifice. The way is service. The way is surrender. And they're saying, hey, we want what you're offering. We just don't want it like that. And here's what I think a lot of us, we struggle with understanding. And we think sometimes that the barrier to all of this is like, man, we're just rebellious, awful people. And we are just, man, we act like we hate God and don't want to do anything like him. And I think a lot of times that's not what the real struggle is. The real struggle isn't that we have what we consider the worst sin in the world that we're chasing after. The greatest barrier to surrender usually doesn't look like ugly rebellion. It looks just like preference. And so we kind of brush God to the side going, well, it's not really sin. I have good intentions. I'm just kind of following Jesus the best way that I know how. So we have these preferences for how Jesus would have us live. We have preferences for how Jesus would have us obey him. And we kind of like pick and choose what we want. Let's continue on. Verse 41 says, when the 10 heard about this, they got mad with James and John. Could you imagine you're walking and living with these guys for a few years at this point now? And you're walking around with these guys and you think you're a team? But 2 random dudes on the team decided that they were captains and you were scrubs. Hey, Jesus, I know that you had to have 12 disciples, but the 10 of them are pretty dumb. We want to be the guys. And so they hear about it and they're mad. They're angry. And Jesus is like, okay, this is it's time to be the coach here. I'm going to have a little conversation here. We're going to huddle up. And so then Jesus comes and he speaks to them. Called them together and he said, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be the servant or slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. He gathers them. He says, man, those that are considered rulers, they lord it over them. In our modern day, this is kind of like, hey, we've got these elected officials. We elect them. We send them to D.C. We send them to Tallahassee. We put them on the county government. We put them over our school boards. We do all of these things. And then what happens is we put them in these positions. And then many times, not saying everybody, but many times what happens is this. Somebody gets in that position and they go, I like this position. I think I'll keep it. I think I'll take a higher one. And I think I'll take advantage of the situation, and I'll make sure that I keep my power. I'll make sure that I increase my wealth, and I make sure that I will tell all of you people, because you don't know any better than we do now. We're now in power. We're in authority, and we see the big picture like you guys don't anymore. And so now we're going to tell you how you need to do things. And no, we will never give up that power. And that's the picture that Jesus is painting, and Jesus is going, don't you know that the people in power here, they lord it over you? The people in charge of you, they lord it over you. That's the way that the world thinks. That's the things that the world does. But it's not going to be that way among you. See, our world says it's time for us to climb higher. It's time to gain power. It's time to protect yourself. And then Jesus said, no, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. But then he anchors it to himself and says, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. See, Jesus doesn't just redefine greatness. He embodies it. And you go, so what does that look like for me? Like, Jesus is Jesus. What does that mean for me? Because I'm not Jesus. Well, first of all, let me remind you that if you are a follower of Christ, a believer in Jesus, that you have Jesus, his Spirit living within you, empowering you to do what is impossible, which is to actually follow him. But let me give you just 3 things this morning that I think will help you understand what surrender looks like. The first one is this. Surrender means trusting Jesus over your preferences. Surrender means trusting Jesus over your preferences. Where is God asking you? He's maybe asking something of you that you don't like. Trusting Jesus over your preferences. See, I would prefer, see, Jesus, Jesus, if you, and I want to follow you, Jesus. I want to love you, Jesus. I want to be a good person for you, Jesus. And Jesus, I really do. I want my friends to know you. I want my family to know you. I want my coworkers to know you. But Jesus, here's the thing. I'm going to be a really good person, but I really don't want to get in trouble with HR. So I would prefer it, Jesus, if I actually didn't have to talk about you to other people. That would be my preference, Jesus. Right? And I know that's like hey, you're stepping on toes. Like, I know that. And I'm not trying to get anybody fired in here, right? That's not what I'm trying to do. But I want us to start to think through of like, wait a minute. Jesus has called us to live a different life, a life that has eternity in mind, not a life that is just about what can I gain now? How can I move up the ladder now? And so, is there something when it has to do with preferences that I need to trust Jesus over more than just what I prefer? Second thing, surrender means releasing control. Surrender means releasing control. Anybody like to be in control in here? Me? I do. I don't like to sit in the passenger seat when I'm driving. I want to drive. I want to drive. I want to know where I'm going. I want to be able to stop when I want to stop. I want to be able to drive fast when I want to be able to brake when I want to brake. Like, I want to do all of those things. I want to be the one in control. Anybody at your job, you want to be controlled? You don't really want your boss to be in control because they're dumb. They don't know what's best. You've got all the reason. Like, anybody want to be in control? Like, I want to control my own destiny within the company. I want to be able to control the outcome of all the sales because of what I do. Like, I don't want to leave it up to some customer that doesn't even know what's best for them anyways. Like, I want to be in control. I want to be in control of my kids' lives. I want to tell them what friends to have, what friends not to have. I want to tell them what sports to play, what sports not to play, because, I don't really like watching that sport. Like, I want to be in control of I want to be in control of who their spouse will be one day. I want to be in control of so many different things. Am I the only one in here? Yeah, right? So we want to be in control, but surrender means releasing control and trusting Jesus in those things. As a parent, do I trust Jesus, that Jesus loves my kids more than I ever could? Do I trust Jesus, that Jesus has a greater plan for my kids than I do? Do I trust Jesus that he could protect them when they're at such and such place more than I could if I even was physically there? That's just one example. Do we truly trust that Jesus is better in control than we are? We have to release control. And the third thing, surrender means obedience without full understanding. Surrender means obedience without full understanding. This does not mean, hey, Jesus wants you to go out and live a life and be as dumb as possible. Be as ignorant as possible. Don't research anything. Don't think. Don't use your brain. That's not what I'm saying, and that's not what the gospel says, right? We're supposed to be wise. But there are certain things that you're just not going to understand his ways because he's God. And you say, you know what? I don't really understand how this is going to work, but God, I trust you. Young people, this is simple, and this app is probably not even like cool anymore. It's fine, whatever. But like, do I really understand that if I want a spouse, and I believe God has a spouse for me, do I really understand that if I will obey him and do things his way, that he'll provide the right spouse for me in the right way, in the right time? Or do I think I've got to take things into my hand? I've got to test drive the car. I've got to do Tinder and make sure I swipe the right way and get the right person at the right time because, Jesus, you've probably got somebody decent out there, but let me help you out. Like, or am I willing to go, God, I don't know how you're going to provide somebody in this culture at this time that loves you, that I'm going to connect with, that I'm going to find attract. Like, I don't know how you're going to do it. Are you willing to obey him and follow him and surrender to his way, even when you don't understand it? Even when it takes a little bit longer than what you thought. See, Naaman didn't understand the river. The disciples didn't understand the cross, but surrender moved them forward anyway. And so as we talk about what it means to behold Jesus, we look and say we have to recognize who is Jesus. We have to listen and ask the question, am I truly hearing him? We have to begin to say, no, I don't want to just obey because that's the right thing to do, but no, I want to actually turn my desire towards Jesus. And then this week we learned that I want to surrender. Will I trust Jesus? Will I trust him with everything? But here's the thing, this series is ultimately not about just how much you can surrender. It's not about your surrender. It's about his. Jesus is walking toward Jerusalem, toward betrayal, toward suffering, toward the cross. Why? He was surrendering, laying down his life first because of his great love toward us. Naaman had to surrender his expectations. The disciples had to surrender their ambition. But Jesus surrendered his life. And here's the great thing. Because he surrendered for you, you can trust him with everything. You can trust him with everything. If Jesus, the God of the universe, loved you so much to lay down his life for you, isn't that someone you can trust with your life? Isn't that someone you can trust with your plans? Isn't that someone you can trust with your control? This morning I want to ask you if you would bow your heads and close your eyes and